Hey, how's it going, guys? Caleb Wisted here, and today I'm going to show you how to fillet whitefish. Now, whitefish are cold water fish. They're actually in the salmon family. They're very tasty white meat fish. However, they are tricky to fillet properly and get a nice clean fillet because the meat is soft and it pulls apart very easily. So I'm going to show you a few tricks as far as how to get those nice, clean, commercially filleted looking fillets off of them. And I'm going to show you two different ways to do it. So I'm going to show you how to fillet them boneless and skinless for the table, and then I'm also going to show you how to fillet them with the skin on to use for smoking or baking or something like that. Before we get into the fillet process, I do have a couple things you need to know about whitefish. Number one, the biggest mistake I see people make is not keeping their whitefish at the right temperature from the time they're caught. So if you're fishing open water, you do not want to keep these fish in a warm live well. And number two, if you're ice fishing, you do not want to let them freeze. Either one of those mistakes is going to make the flesh mushier, and you can't afford to do that with whitefish. You need to keep them at that ice cold temperature, but not frozen. Number two key, definitely want to bleed your whitefish before you fillet them. Preferably when they're still alive, bonk them on the head, cut the gills with a scissors or a knife, let them bleed out. That's really going to help you get the nicest fillets possible from these fish. So do those two things, and it's going to make this fillet process much easier. Now, another key to filleting whitefish is a extremely sharp knife. I prefer to fillet whitefish with a conventional knife. Because of the soft flesh, I don't like to use an electric because it tends to pull the flesh apart more. So I like an extremely sharp Bubba 7-inch tapered flex. That's my preferred knife. I use this knife in almost all my fillet videos, but this baby is sharp. And that is a key, because when you're pulling that flesh apart, you want to be able to just slice through it like butter and not have your knife hanging up on anything. So I'll leave a link in the description for this knife. It's an awesome knife. It's the perfect size for whitefish. So pick one up if you haven't got one already. And that's pretty much all you need to know. Now we can get started. All right, guys, again, I already bled this fish out and made sure it stayed cold until the moment I'm filleting it. I did not de-slime this fish. I have a video on how to de-slime any kind of fish. I'll leave a link in the comments for that. It's pretty slick if you don't like the slime. Whitefish are fairly slimy, but they're not too bad if you just rinse them off. So we're going to make our first cut here, right behind the head like you typically would on most fish, just behind the cleithrum bone right here. And whitefish have pretty big scales, but they're actually really soft. And I'm going to kind of cut in just by the head here, make sure I get this meat, angle my knife forward a little bit. Then we're going to turn the knife and follow those back bones just on the upper side of those back bones, right down here, making sure we don't get too deep and get under the bones. See, those scales are just coming right off. They're really soft. Okay, now when we get down to the anal fin here, we can push through all the way through to the other side and just finish that tail out like so. Now, here's the key to keeping these whitefish nice and clean. We don't want to be pulling a lot on the meat. So we're going to try and keep our pulling to a minimum and use the knife and let the knife do the work. So you want to slide your knife underneath like this and just kind of let the knife pull that meat away from the bone. And when I fillet whitefish, I'm going to go over the rib cage. So you can hear right there. That's the rib cage. So you have to kind of angle your knife up to get through those pin bones. And this is why a sharp knife is crucial here. Like I said, you don't want to be pulling too much. So, okay, now we're through the pin bones here. We're just gonna follow those ribs down now. So you're gonna want to angle your knife down a little bit towards the belly. Again, we're not pulling much. We're just kind of guiding the meat off the fish. Now we're just going to cut that right at the belly there, like so. Now this is exactly what you're looking for. A nice clean fillet without those separations and basically the flakes of the meat. And that is from not pulling on it too much as I fillet and keeping this fish nice and fresh and cold. So now let's skin this guy. So in this process, it's very similar to any other fish. You're just going to start your knife here, and with whitefish, they've got a pretty thick bloodline on the back. So I like to take my time and go a little bit shallow on my cut here, and you'll see why when this fillet actually comes off the skin. I'm not looking for speed here, I'm looking for clean, right? So I'm gonna hold my knife off the skin just a tiny, tiny little bit. Not much. There we go. Again, not pulling the meat much if we can. Okay, now see what I'm talking about. See this red right here? That's the bloodline or the mud line. That is fishy tasting flesh, and I left that on the skin almost 100%. There's just a tiny bit left right here in the middle. That's why I skin these just a hair shallow, so that I don't have to worry about that muddy flavor on my whitefish. Now we've got a nice clean fillet. Again, I'm handling it very gently. And now we're going to take the pin bones out. I'm going to trim up this belly a little bit. Sometimes the belly's a little bit thin to get the whole thing, but this is another key point in filleting a whitefish, is taking these pin bones out, because they are pretty good size in a whitefish. If you run your finger down here, you can feel it catching on all these pin bones all the way to, there's the last one right there. So what we want to do is pull those out. So we want to fillet on the dorsal side or the back side of the fish first. We're just going to follow that row of bones and just get your cut started, kind of as a guide. And then we're just going to cut all the way to the table on the dorsal side of those bones. And they kind of angle like this a little bit. They don't go straight down, they angle towards the back. So you want to follow the contour of those bones all the way down to the table here. Like I said, right about there's the last one. So now this side has no bones. The bones are all right here. So now we just follow them down again on the other side to the table. You can see my knife through there. That's how thin of a piece I'm taking. Just like that, and then we just cut that off. So there is a nice whitefish fillet, nice and clean, no mud line on the back, and that is going to be absolutely delicious. Now let's do the other side. I always like to squeegee my table, keep it nice and clean. I'll do this side a little bit quicker just so you can see the process one more time, and then I'll show you how to do this smoked. So we turn our knife after that initial cut, again following those bones on the back on our side of them here. Right about here we push through, take off that tail section. Okay, now again we're just using our knife to separate that fillet. Not doing a lot of pulling. Taking our time. There we go. Perfect. That looks great. Again, keep that table nice and clean. It's going to keep your fish tasting better in the end. Now again, for the skinning process, we're going to skin it just a little bit on the shallow side, not pushing all the way down to the table. Like that. See how beautiful that turns out? And that just leaves that nice red stuff here that we don't want on the skin, and gives us a super clean looking fillet on the backside. Now for those pin bones, find them here, and this time the pin bones are going to be facing away from us. So we're going to find that row, start our knife cut right along that row, and cut them out. There's the back side. And there is the front side. Done. And that rivals just about any fillet you're going to get anywhere, including a walleye fillet. See, there's no separation of the flakes in the meat at all, and it's nice and firm, held together, no bloodline on the back. That is a beautiful piece of meat right there. All right, guys, as you can see, I've chosen one of the bigger whitefish that we caught to do for smoking, and typically that's what I'll do. I'll take the bigger whitefish, those will be my smokers. The smaller ones, those are going to be the ones I bake or fry up. So to smoke them, we're going to start by doing the same process as far as removing the primary fillet, but after that, that's where it gets a little bit different. So we're going to make that same initial cut here along the back, pop through, down through the tail, using our knife to separate that flesh from the carcass here. Feel those pin bones. Now we're going to cut up through them. And then once we get through the pin bones, we're going to follow that rib cage again. Just following those bones, not pulling at all. Same as we did on the other fish. What a beautiful slab of meat on this fish. Okay, there we go. Oh, that's nice. Look at that. That is a gorgeous fillet right there. Now, for smoking, we want to leave the skin on this. So we're not going to skin it. We are going to remove the pin bones before we smoke it. And it's a little bit trickier to remove them with the skin on, but it's well worth it because nobody likes to pick through bones on a fillet. So you can feel those same bones just like we did before. We're gonna make the same two cuts, but the last piece of the process is a little bit different. So again, we feel those bones, follow them down, but when we hit the skin here, we're not going to cut through. We want that skin intact. So we're just going to simply cut to the skin rather than through it, stopping when we hit the skin. Right there. Don't put any pressure on once you hit that skin. And remember, the angle forward towards the back a little bit. You can see right there, there's those bones laying right in there. Okay, now we're going to get on the other side, follow that contour. You can see my knife right through the meat there. That's a thin sliver we're taking. Don't have to waste much meat at all. And same thing, when we hit the skin, just cut to the skin, but not through the skin. Okay, so now we have our bones separated in there from the meat, but they're still attached just on the back side. So now what we're going to do is push our knife down to the skin, and we're going to cut over, across, and underneath those bones. Okay, so all the way through, all the way down the fish, just like that. And now I can basically put my finger here and my finger here, and I can simply run them down and pull all those bones out in one piece right there, just like that. And now we have no bones left. A nice chunky fillet with no bones. We can put that baby on the smoker just like that, put it in our brine, smoke it up, and that's going to be absolutely amazing. All right, let's do the other side quick. Cut down, across the back again, pop through, take off the tail, follow those back bones till we hit the pin bones, and you cut through them. Now here's a little example of if you go too fast and you start pulling, you start to get the meat pulls apart like that. And maybe I went a little too fast there. Should have slowed down around the back side of that rib cage a little bit. And that's what you got to be careful of, and that's why you got to take your time with whitefish and go nice and slow. All right, let's take these pin bones out. Right there. All the way to the skin, but not through the skin. Now on this side. There we go, hit that skin, push our knife through, separate, and now we should be able to peel them out, just like that. Bam, pin bones removed. Another nice chunk of smoky meat, and that is all there is to it. That's some good looking whitefish right there. Well, hopefully that gave you some helpful tips on how to fillet a whitefish. Make sure you subscribe to the channel for lots more videos like this one, lots of ice fishing content coming up, and I'm going to leave you another video to watch right here. Thanks for watching, guys. Get hooked up.